Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. Very excited today. We've got Mariam Khuberashvili. How was that? Did I get it pretty close?
Yeah, it was good.
Khuberashvili. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Well, we practiced quite a bit before I hit the record. Mariam, so nice to see you again. I actually met with you when I was in Georgia not too long ago and just had a wonderful experience with you, your team, your colleagues. And it's super fun to be back here to have this conversation with you today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm very happy to have met you in Georgia and now at the podcast.
It's my pleasure. And I got your name, but I need to let everybody know what you do. You're a product supervisor with Magic Roads, Georgia. And I understand this is a fairly recent new role. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's a big deal. So we're going to learn a little bit about what that means, but we're mostly here to just kind of figure out your story and figure out how the heck did you get from where you are to where you are now. I already know your story a little bit because we've had some conversations, but I'm excited to share that with our audience. So first of all, let's just discuss Georgia so nobody thinks you're in Atlanta. So you're from Georgia. Where is Georgia? What do you want our listeners to know about Georgia? What's the first thing that you can think of?
The first thing is that we are the wine country, right in the Caucasus, in between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. And we are like one of the oldest nations in the world, unfortunately, which was kind of faded and lost in the Soviet Union. And not many people know about Georgia at this moment, especially in the US, but we do exist.
Do you think, and this is a tough question, I've got my own ideas, but I grew up in a different place. Do you think that the confusion is because we have a state of Georgia? If there was no Georgia in the US, do you feel like people would know a little bit more about Georgia and the Caucasus? That's a tough question, I know.
Yes, it's a tough question. I don't think so, because with my experience living in France, there's no Georgia in France, but still almost nobody knew about my country. So I think it's a kind of this assimilation with the Soviet Union and unfortunately with Russia, because many people also ask us if we speak Russian or our language is any similar to Russia. So it's, I blame Soviet Union mainly, I would say.
I can tell that. I sense that. And you know, when I was there, I read something, heard something, someone had said something, maybe it was your colleague Domuna, I'm not sure, but that at some point there was a push to get rid of the Georgian language, probably during the Soviet era. Is that true, or did I just misunderstand something?
Yes, it's true. Yes.
Okay. And why would that be? What's your best guess as to why that would be, or what stories have you heard as why would the Soviet Union want to eliminate the Georgian language?
Yeah, it was in the 1970s. I guess they would just want to make progress in making Georgians lose their identity and making them completely just like Russians, maybe, because I think they see us as some of the small nations in North Caucasus, you know, the Chechnyas and Dagestanis and so on, who at this moment, unfortunately, mainly speak only Russian. They are Russian citizens and so on and so on. So I think that was the vision for Georgia as well, to like make the people lose their identity and make like swallow the whole country, you know, like don't exist and just be part of Russia. That's what I wanted in the Soviet Union, and that's what I want now as well. But we're resisting.
What do you mean? What you want? I want to make sure I'm
What
clear
they
on what
want.
you just said. What they want? Yeah.
Yeah, what the Russians still want.
If you don't mind, I'd like to discuss this a little further because I've had a few conversations now with folks that grew up in former Soviet bloc countries. And I understand that the first I don't know, maybe it was longer, 5 years or so after the fall of the Soviet Union was a very difficult time for many of these countries. And I suspect, and I've heard that there were some people at the time that were like, no, this is really bad. We need to go back to, Mother Russia and somehow maintain that relationship. And then there were other people that are very happy about kind of the independence. Was that, I mean, you're probably too young to remember all that stuff, but I suspect you've heard some stories.
It's a very good question, actually. That's like part of my identity as well, that I'm the person who was born after the Soviet Union, but who grew up on the remnants of the Soviet Union, you know. My parents, for example, like, did not know any other way how to live except of living in socialism and Soviet Union. And I did not know how to live in socialism and Soviet Union because I grew up in a free country and I would call like, it would not be like called democracy, but some kind of effort of having democracy and
Okay.
capitalism, more or
It
less.
seems like you're choosing your words carefully. I respect that. And did that create a big divide between a generational divide? I've heard that where kind of the older generation kind of set in their ways and then the younger generation. What insights can you share around that?
With my feelings and my like kind of observation, yes, these people who all lived all their adult life in the Soviet times and like they did not know how to live in capitalism. It was really tough for them, I think, after the Soviet Union living in Georgia. And I would say our parents' generation, like my parents' generation, was mainly like that and is like that at this moment as well. And it was difficult for them to have such a drastic change of I don't know, statehood,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the right word.
Mm-hmm. I'm I'm curious, do you think that there are still people in the older generations that even today kind of miss those days and wish that things were back that way? Or have we gotten to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, we're better off now? I mean, I'm sure there's various different
Yes,
people might feel different
that's
things, but
interesting. Yes, I've heard from my parents, from my aunt especially, that she sometimes mentions that, oh, life was beautiful. We would go to summer camps every summer. We had like plenty of food. Everybody was employed and things like that. That's like the nostalgia they have, what I have heard. And they say that like it's difficult to live in this life. We are poor, we don't have that much. It's difficult to find a job now, and so on and so on. So, in my opinion, it's like that the lifestyle they had made them less resistant. They did not know how to, like, kind of survive in capitalism, maybe, like how to be more competitive, how to get, even how to study, because they would study one thing and they would work in that field for all their life. But now it's not like that. You always need to study and improve and educate yourself and like be competitive in the market, something like that. So I think that's the kind of a characteristic that the parents' generation doesn't have. That makes it difficult for them to have a better life.
got it. And I suspect the perspective is if for some reason you had that kind of natural instinct, entrepreneurial type of instinct, when it all happened, you probably maybe had a different result.
I think so.
Yeah. And so I guess it depends. If your life got better, then you thought it was, freedom was great. And if your life got more difficult, then I mean, I can appreciate that. I can relate to that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Now, is it difficult? Does it feel awkward for you to discuss things about the Soviet Union or Russia or politics? Because politics is a thing in Georgia. Russia's a thing in
Yes.
Georgia. So I just would love for you to share with our listeners kind of what that, I don't know, is that comfortable when I ask you questions about the fall of the Soviet Union? Or is it like, oh geez, I got to be careful. I'm, getting recorded.
Yeah, it's okay. Because I've been feeling like that. Like I'm the generation that was born right after the Soviet Union collapsed. So I've been studying and going to the buildings that was built by Soviets. Even my birth certificate says born in USSR, but in 1993 they just did not have any other papers to give to the parents. So, like, it's the correct expression is like I was living on the remnants of the Soviet Union. I grew up over the remnants of the Soviet Union, something like that. And also, what was difficult in the 90s when I was fortunately still a child and I did not have to be adult in that time was that there was a real chaos in Georgia, several wars, a very high crime and things like that. We did not have electricity, there was no food and things like that. So as a millennial, I feel like I have the characteristics of the modern millennials, and also I have experience of living in the 19th century because I would literally study over the candle lights when I was a kid, and we would have like fireplace and like now remembering it was normal then, but now remembering it, it does feel like living in the 19th century. And then things started to change in the 2003, and I remember the first time when we had non-stop electricity at home. And it was such a big kind of a celebration day. But at that time, it felt really like a normal thing. I did not know anything else, you know, and I was not bothered even with that kind of lifestyle at the time.
Wow.
So
So
it's
that was
like,
in 2003 is when things really started to change as far as full-time
yes,
electricity.
yes.
That's that's interesting because when I reflect back to what I was doing in 2003, it seems like a very long time ago. And yeah, my life was a little different in the US. Interesting. Help me understand how you got into kind of traveling and exploring a little, because you told me some of your story when I first met you. And obviously, you had opportunities to leave. You weren't like growing up during Soviet times. I get it was much harder to travel back then. But I'm just curious kind of how you went from studying by the light of the fire to having opportunities to go travel and explore.
For me with speaking English. And I grew up in a small town, which is at this moment a UNESCO heritage site. And I used to see a growing number of foreigner visitors coming to my hometown. And when it came to choosing the profession, when I was graduating and a couple of years before that, I kind of felt that I wanted to do that. I wanted to bring these people to see my country, to see my hometown. And also, it was kind of fun communicating with these people. It was very different from what I was used to. So, somehow, kind of naturally, I went to tourism and I went to study tourism in the university. And since the first year, yeah, I was in the university, I started working as a tour guide in my hometown because I was already speaking English. And even at that time, speaking English was not a common thing in my hometown. My generation was already speaking English, but like older generations, it was kind of a mystery. My mom sometimes had asked me to like, can I just watch you speak English? I guess
Uh,
she never had this chance of seeing me speaking English, so maybe I will send this link of this video.
it, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it is an interesting thing because if you grow up with somebody speaking one language and then all of a sudden, they start speaking a different language, it's like almost like, wow, it's quite interesting. I remember my son, I started learning Spanish fairly quickly after I started traveling full time 4 years ago. And I think the first time that he and I were spending time together in Latin America, he was just looking at me like, wow, dad, what have you done with my dad? You're speaking Spanish and communicating with people. And it was kind of a shocker for him. So I can appreciate that. Do What was your hometown that you grew in?
Treta.
Zveta?
Um, Treta. It's 20 kilometers away from Tbilisi. I think you must have been there. There are two rivers meeting, one 11th century UNESCO heritage site, and there's another one, a 6th century one, which overlooks the rivers. I will
I'm
send the link later.
Okay, cool. I was curious. So were there tour guides or other people working in tourism in your town when you were young that you had the opportunity to engage with, or you just saw people
Yes.
visiting and got inspired, or I'm just curious.
Yes, my history teacher, she had just started working as a tour guide because she went through some trainings. So she led me to this job where I firstly started guiding because they were looking for English speaking person who would be able to do that. She spoke some English, but they needed a second person as well. So she kind of led me there. And from there, then I was already graduating. I started looking for another job, and then I started working in another travel company where I went through training of being a tour guide, like guiding big groups, all the skills you need, not only the history, knowledge, and language. So I worked as a tour guide for a couple of years, and that's how I entered the travel business.
Curious, when you first started, maybe you started with her, your history teacher. Was that your first real interaction with foreign guests?
That's a very, very good question. No, because I used to have English teacher who was from the US. There was a program, kind of like experimentary program, and at my school, and we had an English teacher from the US. His name was Thomas. I don't remember his surname, but he would give us some lessons. I don't know if they were like volunteers or there was some kind of program, but as a kid's perspective, having this teacher was a really big impact. So I will always be grateful for this opportunity, and I will always be grateful to the US for this program that they did for our remote towns or villages in Georgia.
Do you remember how old you were when you first met Thomas?
I should have been around 10.
Do you remember your initial thoughts? I mean, were like, this guy's weird, this guy's goofy. I mean, because some of it's just personality, and then, but also if it's your first real foreigner that you've had interaction with, do you remember kind of what your initial thoughts were?
Not really, but what I remember is that we were really happy having this teacher during the lessons. And what I remember, what was weird is that he would make the lessons very fun, and we would engage in like playing and singing, sometimes painting, some kind of like competitions that we had, which was really unusual for us because all our teachers that we had
We're
before, they
former
were
Soviet Union.
yes, you know. So that's what I
I'm
remember. It
I'm
was
imagine. So
weird.
he was the cool teacher.
He was the cool teacher,
He was the
yes.
fun teacher. And it's interesting because I remember I took French in high school. And I cannot remember her name, but she was from France, and so she was probably one of the first people I met that was, or that I was around that was from outside the country. And I got to tell you, she was not the fun teacher. And I'm not.
Was she from Paris?
That's probably what it was. And we're not knocking anybody from Paris, but I'm guessing that maybe when she was looking for a job to teach French in the US, or maybe not, maybe she wasn't even looking for the US, but she ended up in Sheridan, Wyoming, which is, in the middle of nowhere, probably about as far away from Paris culture as you can imagine. So she probably wasn't that excited to be there with a bunch of kids from Wyoming trying to teach them French. So I guess I can't blame her for not being the the fun teacher. So, but it sounds like this guy really had an impact on, like,
Yes.
do you remember like do you remember going home and like talking to your parents about, oh, there's an English teacher at school, he's really cool, he's fun? Or did that even come up?
That I did not remember, but I remember he would not let me play the competitive games because I would always win. So he wanted other kids to also learn English.
You were the one raising your hand. I know the answer. I know. Pick
Yes.
me, pick me. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was that kid in English.
I know this was a while ago, not too long ago. You're pretty young, but do you remember like some of the other kids? Were they inspired in the same way? Do you know if any of them went on to work with Americans or English speaking people, or actually, work in the industry, or do you know?
Oh, yes. Now I can recall that most of my classmates work in organizations where they mainly need English language as their work language. So, yeah, we were ready for this. We wanted this. Like, we were the free Georgia kids.
Do you think that if they brought in an English teacher that was not very much fun,
Mm-hmm.
just real serious, just how much? I guess what I'm saying is, were you guys so thirsty for knowledge in English culture and language that it didn't matter if the teacher was good or not? You still would have embraced it? Or do you think his personality and the way he approached it had a huge impact?
Well, we were kids, so the personality and the games and competitions was like what we liked, I guess. Because I had a Russian language teacher as well. She was very, very conservative,
No.
and yeah, I don't speak very good Russian.
Well, and that's the reason I wanted to ask is because there may be somebody listening to this that's a teacher or wants to be a teacher or whatever. And when I look at you and I listen to you and I see the look on your face when you describe this, it's like people can make an impact, a
Yes,
really big impact, especially when we're talking about cross-cultural things. I mean, it's possible you could have had a fun math teacher from Georgia, if that's possible. I don't know. But you could have a teacher that teaches math that's a lot of fun, that maybe you grow up and you become a mathematician or a scientist or something like that. But I think when it comes to the human and interpersonal connections, that language and that cultural difference creates a pretty cool opportunity. I guess I don't know where I'm going with this. Do you know where I'm going with this?
yeah, you're right. Like learning a new language is always like a window to the other world. So, and it makes you see the things differently and see different things in different nations.
Did you ever have an English teacher, or have you ever come across an English teacher that was Georgian?
Yes, I
I
had
suspect
several.
so.
Yes,
What's
yes.
the what's the like set aside, try and set aside his personality, and if that's even possible. Do you let me put it this way. If you were your parents back in the day and you've got your daughter and you want her to learn English, or you're open to her learning whatever she wants to learn, and you had a choice between putting her in a classroom with an English teacher from the UK or the US, or putting her in a classroom with an English teacher from Georgia, would you have any preference? Is there, based on your experience, would you choose one over the other, or do you think it matters?
That's a very good question. I really don't know because in my case and in my generation case, it the tandem or how to say like the synergy of Georgian and American teacher worked quite well because he was the fun teacher. He would teach us with games, and she was Georgian one was the one who would explain why things were like that. So because for example in Georgian language we don't have he and she, we just have one word that, so we would need somebody to explain what that was and why you have two words for
That's a
like
big conversation. We need to be careful because that's a conversation going on now in the world. He, she, him,
yes,
her. Yeah.
we don't have that problem, because we don't have he and she in Georgian language. So maybe you should also.
Yeah, I think there's a push just to drop that, and that's fine.
Is
I
it?
don't we don't need to go into politics, but okay. So that's interesting.
So I
I
think
guess
we
go ahead.
needed somebody to like give an explanation why things were different in that other language.
Do you remember what he? Do you? I'm not sure. I want to ask this.
You can cut it.
I'm trying to imagine teaching a classroom full of younger children, 10 to 12 to 16. Probably gets worse as they get older. Trying to explain the differences between he and she. It just sounds like a whole can of worms. That would be a bit of a challenge these days to try and explain that in a classroom. But
Yeah, it was not
anyway,
that complicated in the 90s, Georgia. We did not have problems like that at that time. We were
not that
just
it's
hungry.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, all right, very cool. Do you Do you remember the first moment when you decided, I definitely want to go overseas? I want to go see something other than Georgia.
I have not thought about that because we were very poor, so even traveling somewhere like did not come across my mind. So what happened was that I was not traveling, but the world was coming to me visit, and I would meet many people from different parts of the world, starting from like Australia to the US to UK and Switzerland, and like that's how firstly I got introduced to the world, I would say. And then the first time I traveled, it was like 2016 or 2017, and it was a business trip. I went to London as a business trip, so that was the first time I left Georgia. But after that, it was a lot.
After, meaning
It was a lot of
you traveled quite a
traveling.
bit after that, and
Yes, yeah.
you've lived overseas. It's it's interesting because I'm traveling a lot, and I recognize how fortunate I am to be able to do that. There's obviously a financial side, but there's also just a side of, I was born in a place where I got a passport that makes it easy, relatively easy. And many of the places I travel, the people I meet and the people I connect with, it's not so easy. Even if they have the money, it's not so easy. So I guess where I'm going with this question is, when you started to meet people from overseas, I'm just trying to get inside of the head of a guide who's working in her home country, guiding people that are coming from outside, generally people that have the resources and the passport that allow them to do it. I'm not going to ask you how necessarily you felt, but do you give me an idea what do guides sometimes think when they've got all these quote unquote rich tourists that show up in their country, and does that create some jealousy or some issues, or what have you seen? Because you work with guides right now.
Hmm.
You supervise and work with guides right now that maybe are having similar experiences. So what would you like to share with our listeners about that side of it?
Very good question. The people that travel in Georgia, they are usually very well traveled. And well traveled people are usually very humble and open minded. So I never felt any kind of jealousy or something negative towards these people. It was usually like interest of how things were working in the other countries and how was their everyday life and things like that. And they never ever made me or any other guys that I can recall feel bad about themselves or something. These people are usually very humble and really, really nice people. Sometimes even today, we send the New Year letters to each other to see how we are doing and things like that. And they might be like quite famous people in their country, kind of very rich, but they're like a friend to the guide that was their guide a couple of years ago. So I would say the people were really nice. So I was lucky with that.
I think that's an interesting observation, because it sounds plausible that people that go to Georgia, it's not the first place most people go. If they want to leave the US or the UK, Georgia's probably not the first place they go. It's
Yes.
probably like the 30th place they go. For me, it was number
Yes.
33 or 34.
Exactly.
And I knew about Georgia when I was 17. I learned about it in school from a teacher that inspired
Yes.
me. Um, and somebody that's been to that many places or is that serious about going to a place like Georgia, it's because they want to create connections with people. They want to experience things. And I'm not knocking anybody, but maybe somebody who, got to be careful how I say this, but maybe somebody whose first and only trip is to Cancun, Mexico, or the
Yeah.
Bahamas, might be traveling with a different view of the world. And that's not I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I spent a lot of time in the Bahamas, but um, that's interesting.
May I help you?
Yes, please.
I've read that there are it's a common understanding that there are travelers and there are tourists. So those to come to Georgia, they are usually travelers. They want to learn about the culture, about the people, language, and so on and so on. They don't come mainly for taking pictures and showing off to their friends that they went somewhere like they would do in front of Eiffel Tower. So yeah, usually the people that travel in Georgia are that kind of travelers.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation as opposed to the Instagram. I just want a picture of me in front of the Eiffel Tower or the Leaning Tower or the whatever tower or the waterfall. And that being said, there's some incredibly beautiful places to see in
Yes.
Georgia. Some great photo opportunities. But you don't go to Georgia, I think, for the well, maybe a few people do, but I mean, I hear what you're saying. We should. I just realized we really didn't dig very much into the wine thing because when you said it's a wine country, that's like one of the first things you said about Georgia. And a lot of people listening to this that maybe aren't aware of Georgia think, well, no, I thought that was France. And you've
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of experience with France as well. So
Yes.
let's dig a little deeper into the importance of wine in Georgia because I quickly learned that it can be a problem because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of wine. People really like to drink it and it's just readily available. So help us understand the culture of wine and where Georgia fits on the map of wine for people that maybe aren't aware.
I would love to talk about the contribution of Georgia in wine culture. And especially as a person who lived in France and worked in a winery in France. So I think I can say a word.
I think you can. That's why I asked.
Yes. Georgia, we can very confidently say that is the birthplace. So the first wine was made here on the land of Georgia 8,000 years ago. And we can prove it by archaeological excavations and the real actual evidence. And there is a big part of about wine in Georgian culture. For example, the lady who converted Georgia into Christianity, Saint Nino, she came to Georgia with a cross made by wine twigs, and it's a lot of in our language. Many things are related to wine and as a drink wine and as wine.
Wait,
So
hold on. I heard you say as a drink wine and then as a
like it's wine with V and wine with W. Like
okay,
that's what I
yep.
mean. I don't know
Okay,
how to
so
pronounce it
wine
differently.
and it's close. Wine and vine. So the vine is what the grapes grow on, and then you
Yes.
take the grapes and smash them and turn them into wine. Am I hearing the words right? Vine and wine?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. But
There's more to it. I know. Tell us more.
for Georgians, our language is also a phonetic language. V is just V for me, and it's difficult for me to see that difference with V and W. Not very good job, Thomas.
He didn't spend enough time talking about wine and vine. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, well, it's like me trying to pronounce your last name. For you, you're like, come on, this is easy. But
This is
it's
just V, like, come on.
yeah.
Yes.
Jeez, Jason. All right. So wine and vines are very important. And
Part of Georgian culture, yes.
yeah.
Every family makes their own wine. Even my father makes the wine. It's not the best in the world, but it works for our family.
Meaning the wine that your father makes, or just not
Yeah,
you're not saying
the wine
Georgian
that
wine is not the best. It's
no,
your
Georgian wine is the
father's wine is
best,
not
of
the best.
course.
Okay.
My father's wine is not the best. Yes.
I guess you won't invite him to listen to this episode. Okay.
Yes. No, he knows that.
Oh, okay. All right.
I only
Cool.
drink his red wine. I don't like his white wine. So it's a big part of our culture, of course. And it's a different kind of a tradition of making wine in Georgia. We make it in clay vessels, clay jars, which are buried underground. And also we use the grape seeds, skin and stems in the vinification process while the wine is being fermented. It is fermented like the whole thing, the whole juice and skin and the whole pressed wine. It's not separated.
So, let me just ask you this real quick because I know you know the answer and I
Mm-hmm.
don't. But I did learn that on a trip that
Mm-hmm.
you set up for me to go visit a winery.
Yes.
But in France, they're more likely to squeeze the juice out of the grapes and then just ferment the juice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And where in Georgia, what I learned is it's kind of like they just take the whole, not the whole vine, not the whole plant, but they grab a bunch of grapes and
Yes.
smash it up with the stems and whatever, put it in it's quevery. Did I say that right?
Probably,
Quevery?
yes.
Quevery? Ah, yeah. I remembered something. and then put it in there and let it just ferment, which is why it has kind of a unique flavor, but also a color profile. Like with the white wines, maybe you should be talking. I shouldn't be talking. Tell us
Yeah,
about
very
white
good.
wines.
Yes, so in the world, we could say there is like the classic wine. The classic wine is the one that is fermented with just the juice, whatever the wine is in the world. And then there is Georgian wine, which is fermented with the whole pressed grapes, with the skins and the juice. And it is fermented underground in the clay vessel. That is Georgian wine.
Is what percentage, like maybe no, I'm imagining, is all Georgian wine produced that way with the stems and the seeds and the all this or that, or is it more of that's the traditional way, and but
Yeah.
then some wineries also do the more classic or whatever you said,
Yes.
right?
Yes, very interesting. Nowadays, we mainly do the classic wine. We make the classic wine in Georgia mainly, but we keep the tradition. I don't know if you have tried and if you have noticed the Kvevri wine taste. It's nice to taste once or twice, but at a dinner, I would prefer to order classic wine. Can be made by Georgian grapes or French grapes or whatever. Kvevri wine is usually not so easy to drink, I would say so, because there are more tannins in Kvevri Georgian traditional wine. And I would call it, that's how I see, this is the first wine. Like, this is how the mankind started making wine generally. And to honor this tradition, we make this special kind of Kvevri wines. However, things improve, and things change.
Do you feel a little bit nervous talking about this? Do you feel like somebody in Georgia is going to hear you say this and say, oh my gosh, it's blasphemy? What is she talking about?
Yes,
Man, okay. Go ahead,
maybe,
continue. Yeah,
maybe, maybe some people won't like what I say, but that's how I see it.
that's okay. They can leave a comment in the comments. Anyway, go ahead.
They will think that they lost me in France.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That Georgian woman is like, we lost her.
So would you say, I don't know if you have any clue of percentages, but I'm trying to imagine like roughly what percent of the wine that's made in Georgia is Quevri wine, the traditional homage to the past compared to the more classical wine. Are we talking 5% is Quevri or
I think
20%
more.
or
Maybe it can be 20%. I really don't know the statistics, but what I can find in the wineries, in the supermarkets, even, or wine shops, that's how I would say that around 20 to 80%.
so who drinks the Quevri wine? Is that mostly tourists, older generation?
Well, we do drink it too. Like,
Okay.
we drink it.
Just not with your dinner because it's not that easy to drink, is what I heard you say.
Yes, like for me, I would prefer, I like white wine for dinner, as long as it's not my father's wine. If I could choose at the dinner between Kvevri white wine and classical white wine, I would choose classic white wine. For me, it's more pleasant to drink.
Do you think that had you not gone to France and spent time in France, like I'm saying, another young
Yeah,
woman the same age as you that has not gone to France and worked in a winery, do you think she would probably give the same answer, or
I don't
is
think
this
so.
just all right? Oh, okay, all right.
But no, I don't
You're
want this to
sophisticated
be
because you went to
seen
France.
that I'm saying something negative about Korean wine. Absolutely
No,
not.
no,
I
no. It's
love
very
it,
cool.
and I'm very proud that we have this tradition and that we are the birthplace of wine. What I'm just saying that it's important to keep this tradition because, like, this winemaking tradition is also UNESCO heritage. We should definitely keep this legacy of our ancestors inventing and creating wine. However, I think we should do the both of the wine. It's like that when ballpoint pen was invented, that somebody would not use it because their ancestors did not. So things
But
improve.
there are still people that use fountain pens if they want to do
Yes,
calligraphy and stuff like
yeah.
that, and that's a
It's
good thing.
more like how to say honoring the ancestors kind of a thing, keeping the tradition, something
Right.
like that.
So when you set up a day for me to go out with one of your team members, and we went to, remind me the name of the winery, and I'm embarrassed that I'm drawing a blank, but we're recording this and I'm not going to edit it. So it was Meze?
Muse.
Muse Winery. We
Yes.
went out there, had a wonderful visit. Young man that was there, Christian?
I think his name is Nick.
Nick, yeah, that's right, yeah. And I shouldn't even brought it up if I didn't know the name, but because we are recording this and I'm not going to edit it. But what I can say was he was fascinating young man. And he showed us the cuevaries and explained the whole process and demonstrated this stuff. And at the time, I guess I almost walked away from that thinking, oh, that's just how they make wine in Georgia. I didn't even realize that they also do it the more, you say classic, which is a difficult word because classic sounds like historical, traditional, whatever. But I guess where I'm going with this is most of the wineries that are using the cuevery, that's where you're going to go if you're a tourist, because you don't need to go see how they do it in Napa or France. So you go see how they traditionally do it in Georgia and how they've been doing it for 8,000 years, which is
exactly
pretty big deal. Okay, all right. So that's and like wine, yes, because when I first met you, the very first time I met you in the office, and you gave me a bottle of wine, and that was cool.
Yes,
and I enjoyed that.
But we had croissants as well.
We did. That's true. But French. But the wine was not cuevery wine, I don't think, was it? Do you remember what you gave me? I don't know. I can't tell. I opened it, I drank it, I thought it was great. So thank you. And but the reason I bring that up is it is such a big thing there. And when you walk through Tbilisi or Batumi or pretty much everywhere I went, there are wine shops, wineries. You can walk in and buy a jug of wine. It doesn't have to be in a bottle. I know in the US we have boxed wine, which doesn't always have a great reputation. But I learned that in Tbilisi, a lot of these stores, you can walk in and get a big jug that kind of looks like a water jug and carry it home with you. It's great value, good stuff, probably a little too good of a value. I think I drank more than my fair share while I was there. And one of the places I stayed had some wine vines, grapevines, wine vines. Yeah, you know what I mean? Wine vines over the sidewalk. And I was sitting out there and I asked the young man, I said, so what do you guys do with all the grapes? And he says, so come with me. And he invited me into their backyard, which is like the inner sanctum, right? So he invited me into the backyard and his dad was back there making cha-cha. So which we need to discuss. So he's making cha-cha and they sat me down and we had cha-cha and we had some sort of treat that they mix by mixing like the red grapes with flour and something to like a jam. It's kind of like a jam that you put on. Well, I put it on bread. They said you just eat it like that. I know. Is that it? I asked him, I said, do you dip something in this? Do you put it on something? And they, no, you just eat it just like it is.
Yes.
So I did while I was with them, but then they gave me a whole bowl. Then I got sneaky and I went back into my room and pulled out some bread, which Georgia's also very well known for. And it's amazing on bread. What do they call that stuff?
We call it two names. It might be tatara or pelamushin.
Tatara sounds familiar, but that was cool. And then, so cha-cha, what is cha-cha?
Cha-cha, to simply say and be understandable easier for the people who are listening to us, is kind of a Georgian version of Italian grappa.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when we said that we ferment grape juice and skins together, and after the fermentation, the grape juice is taken out from quarry and moved to a smaller quarry for aging. And we are left with this fermented grape skin and stems and whatever pressed grapes, which are all already fermented without juice. And there's a lot of sugar and alcohol in it. So the smart Georgians distilled alcohol out of it, which is called chaja.
Okay, so I suspect you're definitely more familiar with the process than I am. I watched him making cha-cha, but it was already in, it looks like a still. You know, I would call a still. I don't know if that's a common word in Georgia, but so do they literally just take the stems and the skins and the seeds and all that stuff and put it in a pot and cook it until all the steam comes off of it and then the steam condenses and they do that maybe a couple times or something?
Exactly.
And eventually they get so grappa's it's kind of like vodka made out of grapes. I don't know. Is it?
Yes,
Okay.
it's correct. Yes, yes.
And it's got a
We call
strong
it,
flavor. It's
yes,
tasty.
yes.
Does your dad
Yeah.
make that too?
Oh, that's job of my brother. He's the jaja guy. After my dad makes after the fermentation, it's my brother who makes jaja, and it's usually a big celebration at home because all of his friends are there. They are drinking the jaja, and whatever you witnessed with your host, like many of his friends
It
are
was
there.
it was so cool. It was the couple that owned the place and then their son who was kind of the translator. Not kind of, he was the translator. And we just sat there and the father kept giving me more shots of cha-cha. And then and his son is like, you got to be careful with that. You don't want to
Yes,
have the cha-cha with too much food or this or that. But then his mom kept bringing out food. And he kept saying, you shouldn't have cha-cha with food, which I don't know. But she kept giving me food. So we're sitting there eating and drinking cha-cha. It was actually quite a nice experience. And then I
yes.
saw him the next morning. He said, how are you doing this morning? And I was like, but the tartara, let's talk. Did I say it right? Tartara? Tartara?
Tatara, yes.
Tartara? Because I tried to explain that to my mother. I was having a conversation about this grape. It's not jelly. And I told her I think it's grape and flour, and she thought that sounded weird. So maybe I should ask you, and then I'll ask her to listen to this episode so she can understand what I was talking about.
Yes, you're right. It's grape juice before fermentation, and it's wheat flour. And before fermentation, the grape juice is like regular juice, just
Mm-hmm.
sweet. So what you do is that you mix the wheat flour and the grape juice on a low heat, and you just stir it constantly. And then it becomes thick like jelly and very, very sweet. And it's like a Georgian, maybe the only dessert we have in Georgia. We don't have any other sweets, basically.
Well, okay.
Do we?
I have a few follow-up questions on that, but before I go there, apparently grape juice and flour sounds really weird to Americans. That's what? But I understand that the flour is a thickening agent, kind of helps it gel
Yes,
up, right? The starches in the
exactly.
flour. I assume it's probably not a lot of flour, but then mix a little
No,
flour with the grape juice
little.
and then just boil it down until it's super concentrated grape juice with flour to thicken it up. And we discussed eating it on bread, and you kind of made a face. So it's like you don't eat it on anything. You just take a spoon and you just eat it off the spoon, right?
Yes, like
And if
Jello
you eat
or
it any other way, they know you're a foreigner immediately. Apparently.
if you eat with, because it's full of carbs and sugar, and if you eat it with the bread, it's
Oh,
even
okay.
more carbs for you, which is not good. We usually eat it with hazelnut, walnut, and we it can be sprinkled on top on the plate, or sometimes, but not sometimes. Like the main thing that we do out of this jelly tatara is the candy that looks like candle. You must have seen it in Georgia many, many times.
I'm
So
just
you,
making the connection. Okay.
yes, so you have the walnut on string that you have pre-prepared it and dried very well. And then you just put it in the jelly and stir it a little bit. So you take out and it looks like a candle. And then it dries on the sun and it's like the sweetest thing and my favorite sweet or candy.
Okay. I'm happy we had this conversation because I did not make the connection that I can't remember how to, the final chochkara?
Churchela.
Chorchala. Chorchala.
Yeah.
Chorchala. Something like that.
We call it
And
Georgian candy.
I've heard of Georgian Snickers, I think someone told me.
Yes,
It's a Georgian
yes.
Snickers bar.
Some
And
people
for
say so.
anybody that's listening, it's probably like has no idea what we're talking about. But when I'll share that when I first saw a video of them hanging, they kind of look like candles. If you went to a candle shop and they were selling candlesticks, you know, with a string through the candlestick and it's looped over something, and then there's another candle on the other side, just to visualize, it looks like you're at a candle shop. And initially, when I
Exactly.
saw them, I thought they were candles. And then I learned a little bit more that they're Georgian Snickers bars. But here's what I should have asked when I was there, but I was
Yes.
afraid to. When you buy one, you've got this long, skinny thing. It's about a foot long or so. It's kind of lumpy looking with this tatara around it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's the right way to eat it? Do you just kind of tear it in half and then pull the string through it? Like, how do you get it off the string? Because
Exactly.
that's what you
Yes.
do, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
All right.
logical.
I thought so, but I jumped in someone's car. I think it was Gagi. Is Gagi the guy
Yes.
you sent me out with? Yeah. I jumped in his car and I was afraid to ask him. So I just broke it in half and stripped it off. And then pieces of walnut went flying
Exactly.
all around his car. And I was like, oh, geez. So I
That's
wasn't
how
sure.
we did. Yes.
All right, cool.
So also this story of this candy is related to the history of Georgia because we've been always been in fight and in wars. That was like the main food for the soldiers because when it is dried, it can last for a very long time. So the warriors would take it with them as their main food and it's full of carbs. The walnuts and hazelnuts are really nice for the brain and good oils are
Mm-hmm.
in it. So it was the main food for the warriors of Georgia.
It's starting to get clear why it seems weird that I would spread it on a piece of bread. Now, as you kind of share this and you're
Yes,
talking about the carbs and the combination with the nuts, I'm like, okay, I get that now. Because in my world, anything that looks like fruit jelly gets spread on bread. That's just kind of how I was raised. And it doesn't really melt, right? I mean, I don't know if it
no,
gets, which seems pretty cool because you can buy one and throw it in your
yes.
backpack and snack on it through the day or
As
probably days later, just like you were saying, it stores really well and doesn't melt, make a mess.
yes, it doesn't melt. It doesn't spoil. Yeah, you can save it for years even, and it's good to save for a long time because if you eat it or you snack on it, oh, that's bad. Diabetes.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I gotcha. I'm happy
It's
with this conversation. Go ahead.
It's very high in sugars and in calories, like really, really high. Maybe for a very short time to have it as a snack every day.
Just if you're visiting Georgia, then you could probably
Just when
have
you're
one a day
visiting, it's
for a
okay,
week or two.
yes. As a Georgian, it would not be a good idea to snack on it all the time.
I'm happy we had this conversation. I hope somebody is listening to this that is planning to visit Georgia soon and will just go buy it. Because if you don't know much, you don't have anybody to explain it to you, it's a little, I'm not easily intimidated. I'll try anything, but to walk up to one of these places where they've got all these different colors and varieties, it can get a little overwhelming. Unless you're in the tourist area, the shop owners aren't necessarily going to speak a lot of English. So walk the typical tourist shows up in Tbilisi, sees these things that look like candles hanging in the
Mm-hmm.
market. What should they know to help them walk up confidently, buy one, not embarrass themselves completely, and go about their way with a piece of chocolate? What's it called?
You can just buy and try it. I think maybe you should not buy the ones which are very colorful because now they make some with pomegranate juice or kiwi juice. That is not very traditional. The original one is made out of grape juice. So whatever looks like it can be made out of grape juice, I would buy that one.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is purple, burgundy color,
Yes,
or brown. I saw some that were quite
brown,
brown.
yes. Yes, because when it dries, it gets brown when it's made out of
So
grape
maybe the
juice.
brown one is actually
The brown,
the
yes,
better. That has the least amount of colors added, and maybe
exactly. Yes, yes,
okay.
brown is a good brown. I would buy one.
So you can just walk up and point at a brown one and say, "Give me one or two or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
They will cut them down. They'll hand them to you, stick them in a bag for you, and then just pull it out. This is going to be on video, so some
And
people will
pull
see
the
this on video.
string out.
Pull the whole string out at once, or do you just kind of tear off a piece and rip the piece off of the string?
Whatever, as
The
long
cool people
as
take this.
you need
Don't eat the
you need the
string.
string to be out. So whatever you
Get
take
the
it out.
string out. All right, so tear it off the string. Just chew it, eat it. No big
Yeah.
surprises. Okay, all right. I think we just did a useful service to somebody because they're intriguing. But if you don't know, you don't know if is there sausage inside of those, are those candles, are those whatever, and So thank you for sharing that. Maybe not it.
You're welcome.
I'm generally not that hesitant to ask questions, but sometimes, anyway. All right. So what's the biggest surprise that you've seen with clients when they come to Georgia the first time? What's the thing that surprises them the most? Is there a common theme?
They are often surprised by our feeling of nationality and feeling of being Georgian and not being, I don't know, maybe how strong our identity as Georgians is, because I've met many people that were very surprised that we don't, whoa, what do you mean you don't speak Russian? Is not your language similar to Russian? So I think that's what I've heard the most from travelers.
Let me ask you this. I got the impression that maybe it's the older generation, but quite a few people do speak some Russian.
Yes.
But I got the feeling that if I started a conversation with, I'm 52. If I start a conversation with someone around my age and I say, well, you speak Russian, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they do, they might get offended. They're like, what do you mean? Why would I speak Russian? I'm Georgian.
Yes.
But the answer is yes, they do speak Russian. Me assuming they speak Russian can be offensive. Am I right?
Yeah, because they've occupied us in the Soviet times, and even now they have parts of Georgia still under occupation. So we are not happy with that because, it's not our choice. We were forced to speak this language for a while. So it's kind of a symbol of oppression, something like that.
So will some people, even though they speak it, they just almost refuse to? They know how to speak it, but just as a sense of pride, they don't, because they don't want to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't.
That makes sense.
But nowadays, I think the internet changed a lot of things, because I think I am the last generation that speaks Russian in Georgia, and the people born after me, they don't already speak Russian. My generation, we just choose not to. But I have a really funny story. The other day I was in a cafe, and one Russian lady came in, and without asking if the staff spoke Russian or without asking her anything, she started talking to the staff in Russian. And there was this waitress, she was looking at her with empty eyes. She did not understand what she was saying. And the Russian lady was just asking, how much is the water? That's what she was asking.
Mm-hmm.
But this girl was just looking, and then she said, can you tell me in English? And this Russian lady just did not say a word, and she just left. And then this waitress went back to the other waitresses, and she asked, what did you want? So in that moment, I understood that she really did not understand what that lady was saying. She really did not know Russian. And I was very happy that the other staff also, they were like, we don't know, I don't know what you wanted, it was not English. And that's how when I felt like a dinosaur, that was the first time in my life I felt old.
Yeah. Welcome to the party, Mariam. That's interesting, because as an outsider, you show up, you hear Russian, you see, especially older people, that I can't really tell if they're Georgian based on looks I kind of have a guess, but I also realize, people don't all look the same. And there's a little bit of an for me, I'm thinking, yeah, everybody here probably knows some Russian, just because you see it on street signs and you see old remnants of stuff. So it's easy for me to assume that maybe people speak it, but it sounds like that's not the right assumption. So that's a good surprise. It reminds me of France. It reminds me of no, that doesn't remind me what you just shared, but what I was saying earlier about yes, I speak it, but I'm not going to. It's you go to France. And did you speak French when you went to France?
Yes.
When you first got there? Okay, you were probably way ahead of the game. Because as an American, you show up in Paris, if you're not trying to speak French, you're not going to get anywhere, even though most of the people speak English. Well, I don't know if that sounds disparaging, but when I first went, I was a teenager and I had been taking French. So I did fine, but my grandparents would try and speak with somebody in English and they're like, no, I don't speak English. And then I would start speaking to them in French, and then all of a sudden they spoke English. It was amazing. But anyway, very cool. Boy, we've discussed a bunch of stuff, and I want to make sure I think we could just keep going. It's fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you this. What did I forget to ask you, or what do you wish that I had asked you, either about yourself, Magic Roads, or Georgia, just life in general. What would you like to make sure our listeners hear before we wrap?
Can you cut this later? Because I maybe I will think.
No, it's okay. I know I kind of put you on the spot, but if there's just anything rolling around, one of the things really intrigued me about both this conversation and what you'd said is that sense of pride, that sense of patriotism. I agree with you 100%. That was something that really impressed me. Even when you were sharing your story when you were young and visitors started showing up and I heard you say, I want to share my country with people.
Yeah.
And that's something I definitely got while I was there. And I got the impression that even some people that I really would like to live overseas, live somewhere else, but they're not going to tell you that. They're like, what do you think of my country? Everybody I met, it's like, oh, do you like Georgia? What do you think of my country? And I might say, oh, I really, really love it here. It's beautiful. And the people, and maybe inside they're thinking, well, I wish I could go to your country or whatever, but they're not going to say it. It was just my story in my head. I don't know if that's true, but
Yeah, I remember. What I want to spread the word about Georgia is that it's extremely safe country, which can be a common misconception about Georgia being in this region. But it's like one of the safest countries in the world, and that's what I would like to explain to our listeners. That there's almost like no threat to traveling in Georgia, even as a single woman traveling alone. I would be quite confident traveling in Georgia.
I'm happy you brought that up because there's a challenge that I suspect you're much more aware of than I am. But Tbilisi, if you watch YouTube videos of Tbilisi, because I watched a lot of them before I went, and even when I was there, if you don't know better, you might look around yourself and say, wow, this place looks kind of dangerous, to be honest. And that's because some of the buildings are older.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're charming. Charming is one way to put them, but another way to put them might be is some of them are kind of dilapidated and there's a lot of graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that I saw in Tbilisi that some people might use or might interpret as, oh, this looks like a bad neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, I was completely comfortable walking around it. And I didn't do this a lot. I don't want our listeners to get the wrong idea of what I'm doing when I'm traveling. But there were a few times I was out, met some friends, and we were out late because they do that. I met you and a friend and a couple friends out one night. And, it's like 3 a.m. You can walk. I felt perfectly comfortable walking around in these neighborhoods with graffiti everywhere, holding my iPhone, walking down the street, never worried about anybody approaching me. I never once felt uncomfortable. And I had some female friends that, were out and about late at night as well. And I felt completely safe there. Not for a moment did I feel nervous about anything. So I'm happy you brought that up because sometimes you can't judge by a book by its cover.
Yes,
And,
yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Very, very cool. Well, I sure appreciate you sharing everything. We're going to have a link to the website right in the show notes. So anybody that's like, man, I need to go to Georgia. We've got a lot of other tour operators. Actually, I was connected with you through a guest that we had on the show who I'd reached out to some of my network and said, hey, I'm going to Georgia. Who do I need to connect with? And was given your name. So there's a lot of tour operators that listen to this. I just think because you work a little bit directly with clients. We discussed this when I had Tamuna on the show not too long ago, but it's mostly working as a DMC, right?
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. So hang on one second. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Mariam. I enjoyed the conversation and look forward to working on some more projects with you in the future and maybe having you back on the show at some point.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Thank you.
It's lovely to do this podcast.
I will ask you this question because I recently learned the word for thank you in Georgian is madlova.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard someone say that that's also the same word for goodbye. Is that right? Or did I misinterpret that? That's not right, right? So how do you say goodbye?
Goodbye, we would say this.
Okay, I'm not even going to try that. Nahromdas? Nahramdis?
Va, va, nachvamdis. It word by word means until the next time, until I see you, something like that.
Sounds very good. I like that. And that right there is why I learned about 3 or 4 words in 2 months in Georgia. Right there. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.